Good evening, students. In this video, I'll explain whether a dividend can be revoked or not. So many students are having confusions about it. So whether a dividend can be revoked or not. So I'll give an answer to this, whether a dividend can be revoked or not. If so, on what basis? Which dividend can be revoked? If not, why dividend cannot be revoked? Okay, right. I'll give many sources. To my ultimate answer, I'll give many sources. So first, we'll start with the statutory provision. Okay, it is section, what we are seeing on the screen is section 123. Section 123, declaration of dividend. Okay, section 123, declaration of dividend. First, I'm starting with subsection 4. Section 123, subsection 4 says the amount of dividend, including dividend, the interim dividend, shall be deposited in a scheduled bank within 5 days from the date of declaration of dividend. Therefore, what section 123 subsection 4 says, dividend shall be deposited in a separate bank account within 5 days of declaration, both interim dividend and final dividend. Okay, dividend can be, what the provision says, as per section 123 subsection 4, as per section 123 subsection 4, dividend, okay, both final dividend and interim dividend, final as well as interim, final as well as interim. Okay, both final dividend as well as interim dividend shall be deposited in a separate bank account within 5 days of declaration. Okay, shall be deposited in a separate account, shall be deposited in a separate account within 5 days of declaration, within 5 days of declaration. So here the important concept is this one, declaration. This is the important term. Okay, within 5 days of declaration, I have to deposit in a separate bank account. Okay, within 5 days of declaration, dividend has to be deposited in a separate bank account. Okay, right. This is one provision. So therefore, only when I have declared the dividend, only when I have declared the dividend, I have to deposit in a separate bank account, final as well as interim. And next, this is one source, what the provision says. And next, have a look at the ICA board metal. What the ICA board metal says, dividend is not a liability unless it is declared by the shareholders at a validly constituted general meeting by passing an ordinary resolution. That means dividend becomes a liability. Dividend becomes a liability. They are talking about the final dividend. They are talking about the final dividend. So final dividend becomes a liability only when it is declared. Okay, unless dividend is declared, it cannot become a liability. Dividend is a liability. Dividend is not a liability unless it is declared. So what the provision says, dividend is not a liability unless it is declared. That is the important point we need to note down. Dividend is not a liability. Dividend is not a liability unless it is declared. So where you have to declare, if it is an interim dividend, we'll declare at the board meeting. If it is a final dividend, we'll declare at the general meeting. But unless dividend becomes a liability only when it is declared. So dividend is not a liability unless it is declared. Okay. This point, therefore, only when the dividend is actually declared, maybe by the board of directors in case of interim dividend, or maybe by the shareholders at the general meeting in case of final dividend. So whatever may be the type of dividend, dividend becomes a liability only when it is declared. That is the second point we need to note down. And next, coming to another provision, okay, another thing which will be affecting the dividend provisions is this point. Next, this is Secretarial Standard 3, SS3, Secretarial Standard issued by the Institute of Company Secretaries of India. As per Secretarial Standard 3, paragraph 7, what they said, dividend once declared becomes a debt and shall not be revoked. They said once declared, dividend becomes a liability and it cannot be revoked. Okay, as per Secretarial Standard 3, okay, as per Secretarial Standard 3. Okay, dividend becomes a liability. Dividend becomes a liability when it is declared. When it is declared and cannot be revoked. And cannot be revoked. This is what the provision. Dividend becomes a liability when it is declared. Okay, so dividend is not a liability unless it is declared. So therefore, ultimately, we have to concentrate on this point called as declared. Dividend becomes a liability when it is declared. Okay. Dividend becomes a liability when it is declared. So ultimately, dividend is final when it is declared. So therefore, if I have not declared, then it is not final. I can revoke it. What the Secretarial Standard says, once dividend is declared, it cannot be revoked. Once dividend is declared, it cannot be revoked. Therefore, my answer is that interim dividend is directly declared. Therefore, it cannot be revoked. So therefore, if you draw the conclusions out of that, out of the above paragraphs, if you draw the conclusions, so what my conclusion is, what my conclusion is, interim dividend finally declared. Okay, interim dividend declared directly. Interim dividend is declared directly, okay, without any prior recommendation. Interim dividend is declared directly, therefore it cannot be revoked. Therefore it cannot be revoked. Final dividend is first recommended by board of directors, first recommended by board, and then declared by. Final dividend is first recommended by board of directors. Step 1, final dividend, there are two stages. First, step 1, so stage 1, the board of directors declare the final dividend, recommend the final dividend, then declared by shareholders at the general meeting, and declared by shareholders at the general meeting. So therefore, since there are two stages here, the dividend becomes a liability only when it is declared at the general meeting. So in that case, therefore, after first stage, that means after recommending by the board and before declaration, there is a chances of revocation. Okay, what the secretarial standard says and what the provision says. So provision says definitely we have to deposit the dividend in a separate bank account. Fine. When I have to deposit, I have to deposit within 5 days of declaration. I have to deposit within 5 days of declaration. Okay, right. Now, in case of SS3 also, they said dividend cannot be revoked only when it is declared. So therefore, my conclusion is that final dividend is first recommended by board and then declared by shareholders at the general meeting. Therefore, final dividend can be revoked. Therefore, final dividend can be revoked after recommendation, but before declaration. After recommendation, but before declaration. This is what the point. Final dividend can be revoked after recommendation by board, but before declaration by shareholders. After recommendation by board, but before declaration by shareholders. But before declaration by shareholders. Final dividend. This is what possible. Therefore, ultimately, all the provisions are concentrating on the word called as declared. Okay, therefore, what I can conclude is that final dividend can be revoked because there are two stages in it. First, it has to be recommended, then it has to be declared. Therefore, after recommendation, but before declaration, it can be revoked. I have one more point to this, my conclusion. So, this is my conclusion. I have one more supporting point for my conclusion. What that supporting point says is that when you look at the bonus shares, of course, bonus shares and dividend both are similar because distribution of profits only. Bonus shares will distribute in the form of shares and dividend will pay in the form of monetary terms, cash or check. But in case of bonus shares, there is what you are seeing on the screen is a rule 14. Rule 14 of share capital and debentures rules. So as per rule 14 of share capital and debentures rules, what they said, the company which has announced the decision of its board recommending a bonus issue shall not subsequently withdraw the same. This kind of provision is not there in case of dividend. In case of dividend, there is not. In case of dividend, which is dealt with in section 123, there is no question of recommend. There is no question of withdrawing the recommendation. They have not put any restriction that once it is recommended, it cannot be withdrawn. Whereas that is given in bonus shares. So bonus shares, once the board of directors recommended the bonus shares, they cannot revoke the recommendation. They cannot withdraw the recommendation. But there is no similar provision in the similar provision relating to declare dividends topic. Okay, so therefore, as per rule 14, okay, as per rule 14 of share capital and debentures rules, as per rule 14 of share capital and debentures rules, as per rule 14 of share capital and debentures rules, once the board recommended the bonus shares, once the board recommended the bonus issue, it cannot withdraw the recommendation. It cannot withdraw the recommendation. It cannot withdraw the recommendation. But there is no such similar provisions related to the dividend. But there are no similar provisions related to dividend. But coming to the dividend, there are no such provisions. But coming to dividend, there are no such provisions. There are no such restrictions. Okay, so this is what is my final conclusion. Interim dividend cannot be revoked because it is declared directly, whereas final dividend is first recommended by board and then declared by shareholders. Accordingly, after recommendation but before declaration, it can be revoked. For we can further support our answer based on by giving reference to rule 14 of share capital rules, which says bonus shares once recommended cannot be withdrawn. But that kind of restriction is not given with respect to the dividend. So therefore, this is what my conclusion. Many people are asking, sir, whether a dividend can be revoked or not, whether a dividend can be revoked or not. This is the final conclusion. Interim dividend cannot be revoked. Final dividend can be revoked. Okay, thank you.